All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome to our second webinar, Hands-on Learning and MathWorks. My name is Alicia McDonald, and again today I am your presenter. I'm a trained BC teacher and I've taught in multiple grades and curriculum areas, including high school math. In addition, I've got over 10 years of experience in the publishing industry. Also here with me in the room today are Phil Stenfers-Hayes, who is the Sales and Marketing Manager at Pacific Educational Press, or PEP, and Katrina Petrick, who is an editor at PEP, and also she worked on the MathWorks resources. She's our in-house expert. Phil and Katrina are here today to provide technical support, if necessary, and also additional information in response to any questions you may have. This webinar is live and it is being recorded. So in the coming days, a copy of the webinar will be posted up on the PEP website, and that copy will include both the slides and the audio. So for those of you participating live, you can return to any of the slides or the ideas that you would like to revisit. And for any of your colleagues who missed the live version, they can go back and view the entire webinar online in that way. So when it's posted, Phil will send a follow-up email. And for those of you that participated in our webinar last week, we're working currently on posting that as well. So you'll probably get an email saying that both of them are now posted up on the PEP website. So a quick note before we begin that all the examples in this particular webinar are drawn from MathWorks 12, and the idea is to just give you a preview of this forthcoming resource. So we're actually expecting the MathWorks 12 evaluation copies in any day now. So if you've already requested one, your copy should hopefully be to you next week. Here you can see a list of the table of contents. There are 8 chapters in MathWorks 12, ranging from linear relations to measurement, stats, probability, geometric figures, transformations, trig, and then finally owning a small business. Of course, even though the examples are drawn from MathWorks 12, all the teaching ideas and the techniques are applicable to MathWorks 10, 11, and 12. So a quick overview of what we're going to do today. We'll start off by providing a little bit of background to the interactive and hands-on learning in MathWorks. We will then examine the variety of opportunities and support for hands-on learning in MathWorks, whether it's in a whole class, small group, or partner setting. And just note that we're applying the term hands-on in a broad sense. So we're meaning teaching and learning that's more interactive, more constructivist. It requires the learner to actively participate. So it's not literally meaning the use of manipulatives, although we include that too. Next we will begin by considering how a teacher might plan a particular chapter section, so a tool that's useful for that. And lastly, we'll have some time for questions. Now, as the webinar progresses, you can feel free to type in any questions that may come up, and we'll try to answer them either during or at the end. So to do this, you want to look at the GoToWebinar control panel on your screen there, and you should see a little heading that says questions. You just want to make sure that's expanded, so in other words the little arrow is pointing down, and at the bottom you should see a little box that says, you know, type here, and you can just type your question directly in and submit it, and we will receive it on this end. So first of all, background. MathWorks was written to coincide with the Western and Northern Canadian Protocol and is therefore the only authorized resource for apprenticeship and workplace mathematics 10, 11, and 12. It does cover all the learning objectives, the entire curriculum, so everything is there. And it was written as a result of the new curriculum documents that were developed. This orange link is to the curriculum documents on the WNCP site, and these are very similar, however, throughout the territories, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. So this curriculum has a shift in the approach to teaching and learning math that provides greater emphasis on making connections to students' knowledge and experiences, using manipulatives, visuals, and hands-on materials, employing a variety of teaching strategies and techniques, and guiding students to construct their own meaning. So since MathWorks is based on this curriculum and developed to support this curriculum, the texts also emphasize these exact same elements. So what are the benefits of this constructivist style of teaching and learning, supported by both the curriculum and by MathWorks? Well, what was once primarily lecture becomes more exploratory, more hands-on, more interactive. Learning becomes relevant as it is applied in real-life situations. And then all of this will hopefully lead our students to greater motivation, increased engagement, deeper understanding, and improved retention. So all of which sounds pretty good. How do we do it? So here we are, hands-on with MathWorks. So in this section, we're just going to examine what kinds of choices are available with the text and how are they supported. So the remainder of this section is going to be divided into opportunities for whole class, small group, and then finally partner work. So we're going to start with the whole class and with the section called Math on the Job. So Math on the Job is at the beginning of each chapter. It profiles real careers, so real employment, but furthermore, it usually profiles real people where possible. And the way to tell that a person is an actual person is that it will give their first name and their last name. So then you'll know that you could probably look that person up and locate them in real life. It concludes with mathematical questions that are relevant not just to the job being discussed, but also to the chapter section that it begins. So since these questions are at the beginning of the chapter, they're intended more as review, but it is still like a good idea to work through together as a whole class. So what are some teaching ideas for this section? Well, one way to introduce a hook to the Math on the Job would be to provide students with a video or a photo and description of the person performing the job, and then sort of pose the question, how do you think this person uses math in their employment? And to get that, you can just simply use the photo that's available right there in the textbook, or, as I mentioned, if the person's real, they have a first and last name, you can just Google them and their business, and lots of times you'll find a website, you might find video, you might find other pictures, you might find a whole bunch of sort of more detail and some interesting things to sort of show to your students quickly, and ask them to sort of reflect on, how does math pertain to their job. And another strategy that you could use then to ensure that all students are sort of participating and engaging in this type of thing is called Know, Wonder, Learn. Sorry, one too many. So for short, it's called KWL. And in this webinar, I'm going to go through a number of teaching strategies, most of which are cooperative learning strategies, just like this one. So the purpose is that it forces students to sort of individually be accountable for their learning, be ready to share, and not just sort of have that whole class discussion where they can hide in the back and hopefully, I don't have to think about this and the teacher doesn't call on me type of idea. So the way that KWL works is that students first identify what they know about the topic. I know this. This is what I know to be true. And then they do the W, which is wonder. So they wonder about any gaps in their knowledge. In other words, they ask specific questions. And then for learn, the class discussion ensues, the lesson happens, and at the end, the learn comes into play. This is what I've learned today. So they're reflecting on their learning. And that summary, it can be more informal, like you can have students share out loud, this is what I've learned, or you can have a little more formalized and have them jot down on a piece of paper, the KWL little chart there, and write down Know, Wonder, Learn. Either way, it would combine really well with another strategy called Ticket Out the Door. This is another accountability strategy, and it's just a short task, essentially, that students have to complete and submit as they exit the classroom. And usually the purpose is to reflect on their learning in that class today. Sometimes it's sort of more business type things like, my partner is Sherry and we're going to work on a project on whatever kind of thing. But most times, and it would be in this case, you might say, okay, as you're leaving out the door, I'd like you to hand me your KWL slips and submit them. So later you position yourself there and receive that. Or more informally, if you prefer, as the students exit, you can just speak with them and they can tell you out loud. So here we have an example, math on the job. This one is from Chapter 3 Statistics. This section is 3.1 mean, median, and mode. So for the hook, before you actually show this to the students, before you actually have them turn to their textbooks, you could ask them to think about what might be involved mathematically in being a salon employee. So if they use the KWL strategy, a student might write down, well, I know salon employees would have to be comfortable with percentages because they have to calculate taxes and they have to calculate tips. And then under the W, a student might write, well, I wonder if there's some kind of math involved when you mix up all those hair dyes and the perm solutions and that type of thing. And then after you've given students time to develop that, you could have, if you like, a few students share their Ks and their Ws, their Nos and their wonders aloud as a group, and then move on, flip to the text now, and review it as a class. So in this particular example, we have Billy Joe. She is a salon coordinator, a hairstylist, and esthetician in the Yukon. And she does mention the math that's part of her job, but this section specifically focuses on averages, which is the topic of our chapter section. And these questions that you'll see here, it says that 142 hours was the average number of hours worked by the stylist, and they're driving at the point that the term average is used to indicate the mean or their arithmetic mean, and specifically that the mean doesn't give you all the information. So to drive this point home even further, you could give your students an example like 2 data sets, one with really extreme highs and really extreme lows, lots of different numbers, versus another data set that only has a couple numbers and they're all right around 142. And it would illustrate again these points that it doesn't tell you the maximum, it doesn't tell you the minimum, it doesn't tell me how many numbers are in my data set or what kind of hours were worked each day, that kind of thing. So next we'll move on to another whole class, a section that's suited to the whole class, which is Explore the Math. And this, of course, is where you'll find the content of the lesson. There's at least one per chapter. Sometimes you'll have more in the chapter section than just the one. And each is always followed by 2 or 3 worked examples showing various strategies for solving the questions. So another strategy, a cooperative learning strategy for increasing the students' accountability, making sure that they're understanding the lesson, is called Jigsaw. So in this strategy, you put students into cooperative groups. So, and each person in that group, so say you have 4, which is usually the ideal number for cooperative learning. You have 4 students in your group, and each of these is going to be responsible for a different part of the lesson. They're going to become an expert on a different part of the lesson. So let's say they're each going to become experts on A, B, C, or D. So that group, then each of those people will meet in expert groups. So let's say all the students across the classroom who are going to become A experts, they all come together, they make sure that they know all about A, they know the definition, they know the terminology, they know examples and samples, and they know how to communicate that or teach that to their peers. So that's when, once they feel prepared and confident that they understand this content, they would return to their cooperative learning group. So the person, the A expert would come back and present to their peers this material. So they peer teach and answer any questions they have. And then around the group, the same thing would happen, but the B expert would teach their material, the C expert, and then the D expert. So each student is accountable for a specific part and making sure that each piece is put together to make the whole puzzle or lesson, hence the term jigsaw. So another idea for teaching this